Hey everyone, Kathy Iconis here, ready for our second session on the Cleanup Master Course. So I see that we have a few people already joining us. Let me know if by putting in a question that you can hear me and everything and see my screen. Everything's working right. That's what we want to know about. Okay. Let me see. Looking at that. Pop that out. Who all has, let's see, it's Friday. I hope you guys are excited about the weekend. Um, have any good plans, that sort of stuff. Great. I have Ashley saying good here. That's awesome. Yay. Yay, 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 yay. Okay. And Tamara too. So we are good to go. So let's get started. Who's ready? Okay. I am going to try to slow it down a little bit this time. I know last time I was talking really, really, really fast. um, and like I said, that was the overview, that was big picture, everything like that. Now we're starting to dive into things a little bit more, and we will continue to dive into things a little bit more after this. So it's kind of, think of it as an onion. We're just peeling away layers. You can see everything that we're looking at, and then we're going to discuss some things, and then go into more detail and discuss more things and go into more and more detail on things. Okay. So that's how we kind of approach this whole process of how I do the courses. Okay. Let me get rid of these. So I am over here watching the questions. I have Facebook open just in case someone does an alert over there, and we are good to go. Okay. So today we're going to talk about a little bit more on where to start on the cleanup. Okay. And then go into um, so the title of this one is Cleanup Best Practices, and that's where I kind of was looking for that title. So what we really want to do is understand how QBO operates and how it can work against you when you're doing a cleanup. So we're going to be looking at things that you want to be aware of, and you want to have your settings right and this sort of stuff. So we'll go walk through company settings. We'll walk through managing lists, learn about deleting versus voiding in QBO, how to get data into QBO, and then also the issues around linked transactions, which can always be a fun thing to work around. Okay, so where to start? A little bit of a recap of last time. Remember, when we start, we do that diagnosis and we come up with a checklist of everything we're going to do in our cleanup. And we have conversed with the client. We are on the same page as to what is covered, what is not covered in this engagement, and how we're going to get through all of that. Have a clear understanding of the starting line of what periods are you going to be cleaning up. Are you just going to do like this year, 2019, or do you need to go back a couple of years and do those? How are you going to deal with those prior period changes? If is it something that it's enough that maybe you need to amend tax returns or something where you have a whole other discussion on that? Sorry, my nose itches. Oh, God. Um, but, and sorry, guys, I swear to God, sometimes my ADD. Okay, just to also back it up a little bit, my presentations are not perfect. I am not perfect. I kind of get all over the place, and then I have like a random thought. Like my thought just a second ago is, I really hope I'm talking through my headset and not just through the computer audio, because the headset sounds so much better than the computer audio. So you'll just deal with me. I am real. I am going to give you as much knowledge as I can. But yeah, I am not the most polished presenter, and yeah, sometimes a little bit over the place, but I want to make sure that we're getting you everything you need out of this. Okay, so this is, I mean, my trainings are detailed and all of that, so you'll figure that out. Okay, so back to the starting line before just had like a fly or something. Um, what prior periods are being cleaned up, dealing with those prior period changes. Like I said, if you're having to amend tax returns or something like that, how are we going to deal with that sort of stuff? What do we do with the opening balance equity? I love that one. It's theoretically supposed to be zero, right? If you've taken any QuickBooks exam, they want you to have that account zero. Well, it's also the account that you like plug everything into when you're setting up the books. So honestly, there's some accountants and stuff that never even clear out opening balance equity. And I would bet half the time, maybe more, it's just because it needs to be moved to retained earnings. But again, we need to have it zero, right? And then what are you going to do anything on customizing QBO and to make sure it runs better for the client or even for you, maybe moving forward? So those are the things that we want to look at. Okay. Now let's look at company settings. And I'm not going to go through everything, the entire company settings area. We are going to look at areas within company settings that impact how we do our work, especially on this cleanup. Okay. So while, you can spend time on putting the EIN and address and setting up, customizing, making pretty invoices and stuff, I'm more worried about the functionality of things within QBO with those settings, okay? So if you don't remember company settings, when you are in here, go to the gear icon and you'll see your company and go to account and settings right there. And this will pop up your screen. What I have done in this layout, we have sales forms, bills and expenses and everything that uh, should apply to the same titles right here. It's a little bit different. Okay, so sales, bills, and event expenses, and then everything else is under advanced, I believe. Okay, so we're looking at those three tabs in here and how that all operates. And then in the lesson within Facebook, I have all these slides in here. These slides have the screenshots of these different areas so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about and reference it later if you need to. Okay. So company settings, setting up these sales forms and what kind of matters on this. Okay. Now we have custom fields right here. We can put custom fields on these invoices, like if you wanted to do purchase order or salesperson or something like that. And you can see the option that we view these internally, or if you check that off, then you have the option to view it publicly as well. The big thing to know here is, yes, it's a custom field, but it doesn't give you that drop down option. So what you can do on reporting later is you can search for specific information that maybe is in that field. But remember, if you're trying to have search for a specific person's name or something like that, if it's Robert something and someone puts in Bobby instead, it's not going to show up, right, when you're searching for Robert, because we're not limited to just being able to use the options in a drop down. Okay, so this is what it's custom. We can put anything in there but there's no list attached to this so that we can select items off of that. So it can be harder to search and group things off of that custom field. That's why I would recommend using classes or locations if possible, or even projects or sub customers. If you are trying to use custom fields, if you're able to segment the business in that way, because all of those you create a list for and you have drop downs and it's easier to search, filter, and report off of it that way. Again, custom fields are probably best utilized here if you're doing like a purchase order, something that the end customer needs to have on that invoice. Okay. Then transaction numbers. Now you can turn on if you want custom transaction numbers or not. So what happens when you turn on, let me see, okay, my next one. So when I come in and let's go over to custom transaction numbers. So it's currently turned off, right? Let me show you what happens when I turn it on, actually. So when I go in and I create an invoice itself, now where are you? Let's go to a previous one. Now, I'm like, I turned off custom transaction numbers. Usually I see the thing. They're messing with me, didn't I? Guys, like I said, oh, I didn't save it. Okay, custom transaction numbers. We want it on, save, done. Now we go into an invoice. Dun-dun-dum. Okay, so then now I have that field option in here to put in an invoice number, okay? So I can change this to XYZ and say this is 1310 XYZ, right? And I'm just gonna have to put in some numbers here. There we go. Right? And if I do save and new, it's going to give me 1311 XYZ, right? It's trying to go up in the numbers, but you have the option to overwrite that, okay? Now, what happens is if I come back over to accountant settings and I go into sales and turn that off and done. When I go into my next invoice, right, and I pick this sucker and I do consulting 500 and save it, it will pull the next invoice number and it's keeping that information on here, but I can't update it. Okay. So if you're in a situation where you need to put in like the historical invoice numbers or something like that, you can turn on the custom transaction numbers and utilize that. Then you can turn it back off and it'll go back to that chronological order. Okay. I have Sally saying that it looks like the screen share has stopped. If anyone else sees it, let me know. I'm just going to tell her you might need to sign out and back in again. Okay. Pop that back out. Oop. So that's custom transaction numbers for you. Now, The other things we want to look at are, do you want the service date listed on your invoice? Oh, it's not as important. Discounts and deposits. The reason I care about these, and let me come over here, and I'll tell you that QuickBooks does a great job of explaining this stuff to you. If you just click on the question mark, it'll tell you what happens. When you add a discount field to the invoice, you now have a related setting to it, okay? And what happens is that when you record anything on the discount, it's going to the discount account in QBO, okay? That's how it's being recorded. In a deposit, it adds a deposit field to invoices, and then also it tells you where does that transaction, that deposit get recorded. Again, it's, you want to know what the flow of the money is so that you can figure out how to fix it if you need to. Tips and gratuity, again, this goes, all these go into undistributed tips. Now, tips only shows up on a sales receipt because you usually don't send an invoice to someone, then have a tip associated with it when it gets paid. It's usually a situation where you're at a restaurant, whatever, so it's a sale and collecting the cash at once, and that's what a sales receipt's for, and that's when you would put in that tip. So when you record the tip, it goes to undistributed tips on the balance sheet. Okay, so let's show you a little bit more on, let me go back to that last invoice, right? So those things that I can do, I can put in a deposit right here, right? When I put in the deposit, it now asks me where do I want to deposit this money to. So I'll put it into the checking account, okay? And then also maybe I want to do a 10% discount on things, right? So now I have a whole bunch of accounting stuff going on behind the scenes, right? And how is this showing up on the financials? If you click more and go to the transaction journal, you will see what is happening underneath here. Okay, you'll see that we recorded something to AR, the $350, because that's what we're hoping to, that we still need to get on this invoice, right? We have $500 for revenue, then our discount is $50 and our checking for that deposit we got is $100. And that's how the flow of this whole transaction worked because we turned on those custom fields, okay? And you can click back on this and it'll open up the transaction again if you want to get there. So that's how we deal with these areas. Then the next is understanding products and services, okay? This is the area where you would turn on inventory. So coming back over here to accounts and settings, I'm going to go into sales and I'm going to click this area, okay? Products and services. So do you want to track quantity and price per unit, price per rate, whatever? Do you want to turn that on? That's one thing. And then do you want to track quantity on hand? That's inventory, okay? So do you want to do that? We also now have price rules. Again, I love QBO. It's telling us what to do. I can click this and it allows you to provide specific discounts to products and stuff. It gives you a lot more customization. That's more on customizing for the client, I believe, because what happens in QBO is when we set up things like this, we can always overwrite it when we come in and do the invoice or whatever transaction. So that's not going to impact you as much when we're doing a cleanup, okay? We care more of this inventory thing. Are we tracking inventory? So you can track a quantity of something and not track the inventory on it, okay? Well, it's basically having that quantity on your invoices too. Yeah, but you're not tracking how much you have on hand. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. Then next we have progress invoicing. Again, another newer feature. So all this is that you have the option to create multiple invoices off of an estimate. If you have not seen that done, it's really, really simple. We come into estimate, we create something. Do, 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 do. I have no idea what I'm doing, guys. What I'm determining is, here, let's put in like 100 of those. Here, great. Okay, so I'm gonna save and close that estimate, right? If I come back into the estimate right here, I can come in and create an invoice. Because I have progress invoicing turned on, this is how I now get a screen of how do I want to send out, create this invoice. So you can create multiple invoices off of one estimate. Okay, so hey, let's do 10% of each line. Great. It creates this whole invoice for me, gives me 10% of each one. Remember, I can override anything, so I can say 25% of this and it's updated, okay? And I'll save it. When you come down here, you can see you have your estimate, this invoice, and what has told all the total invoice. The other thing you can do is you can click on the estimate and you can see, hey, I have now invoiced this much and I have this remaining amount on here to be invoiced, okay? And you also up here have that link transaction to the invoice so you can navigate to it easily when you need to. So you see all those options there when we're doing progress invoicing. It's really, yeah, estimate, and then you can create as many invoices as you want to. It will close out when you're done with that, with everything that's on the estimate. So, um, but it's just a easier way to deal with it. Before we had progress invoicing, it was like an estimate to an invoice only. So now it has that multiple option and then tracking it within here. You don't see like how I'm relating to the actual screen with my hand. Silly me. Okay. Um, Next, looking at bills and expenses. This is funny for me because I feel like you get my blonde moments here. When I am sometimes trying to figure out how to turn on like tracking cost per customer, I'm always in the sales area. But it's really, I'm trying to add a customer field to a bill or an expense. So why do I always go to sales first? Don't know. But here is the option to track expenses and items by customer. Very, that's, yeah, you'll get there. You click around. That's what I do, right? Okay. Then also, do you want to make these expenses or items billable? Okay. Again, we have these options. It just adds that check mark on the bill or on the expense to make it billable. We can do a markup, right? And then it'll tell us where does that markup go. Okay, if I turn on that markup, anything that I do is going to go to the markup income account. That's how it's the flow of it. Okay. Then do I want to track billable expenses in items as income? So if I do it as billable to a client, do I want to record that as income? And how am I going to do it? Do you want it to go to a single account? So you have the option to go to one single account, or you have the option for it to go into multiple accounts. Okay. And this then adds a use for billable expenses checkbox to an accounts edit screen in the chart of accounts. Okay. Let me show you what that means. So let me come in here, done. And sometimes this gives me, I have to do like a little searching around for stuff. Because I always want to like, ah, that was crazy. I always want to like push the boundaries. Like I want to click a liability account. It won't give me that option. Okay. Edit. Nope. Edit. Expense account. So when I am utilizing a billable expense and I record it, so if I use data entry, right, as a billable expense, then when I am billing it on an invoice, it goes to billable expense income. Does that make sense? It's like that's how it's flowing through on things. So if I go into expense and do that data entry screen, amount 500, billable, whatever customer, right? Do a save. Now, I then now have this little thing as view, right? It gives me this transaction. It's a billable expense transaction. So it is showing me that when I get it onto an invoice, it will go to billable expense income. I can also override it and change it here. And that markup account is going to consulting revenue because that's how I had it set up. Okay, so that's how that works. It's like when I set up that transaction, what's going to happen on the other end of it. Okay. Now, also in accounting, you know, what's your fiscal year, what accounting method, understand that the accounting method can be changed on any of the reports. So this is more like, what do you want the default to be when you're doing reports and your client is looking at it, or for tax return, you know, like, hey, we're always cash basis. Let's just make sure it's on the cash basis, right? So that's where you would look at that, make that change. Then closing the books. I love this one. If you've been in one of my classes before, you know this is like one of my favorite ones. Okay, so who wants to close the books? So I come in here, I put in a closing date of today, and I put in a password of 123, 123, right? Save. Do, 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 do. And we know what this looks like, right? It's like, okay, now I come in and I am, oh, I don't want to go to that screen. Let's see, go to a recent one. Let's go to a recent invoice. And I'm going to come over here and use the plus sign to go up a couple days, right? And see if I can save and close that. Yes. I get that error, right? I have to put in a password. Put in my password. Yes. Okay. What if you don't have that password? How are you going to deal with that, right? Okay, come back into accountant settings, go into advanced, click, turn off close books. Ta-da! You don't have to have the password to undo it. Isn't that great? You just come back in here, just turn it off. You don't need that password. And if I wanted to close it again, I can. And I have the opportunity to put in a whole new password this time. I didn't have to know what the old one was. Perfect, right? Again, I just love that. That's kind of hilarious to me. Okay. Now chart of accounts. I prefer to have chart of accounts on. I do have a chart of accounts template that I sell just because I'm like crazy. I need my chart of accounts numbers. Okay. Mostly because it's easier for me on the data entry side to know, like entering in information. I can start with a number. I have this numbering system that I like to use, so I know that all assets start with a 1,000, all liabilities start with 2,000, and that so on. Okay. Now the real thing is like if you have something in assets called equipment, right? But then you also have an expense called equipment, and maybe it can still be the same name, it just or equipment purchases or something, right? There's a high likelihood that when other people are recording things, or even you, that you get it to the wrong one when you're not using that chart of accounts. So for me, I just utilize it so I don't have to do a lot of thinking, and I know right offhand if it's a 1,000, that's an asset. And if I'm recording an expense, I am not using that account. There you go, right? Remember, we want to make things super duper easy for us to be successful in the cleanup. Okay. We're setting ourselves up so we're not having to deal with a lot of crap afterwards. And automation is one of them. Automation drives me crazy during cleanups. So coming down here, you can see in this example, I have all of them turned off because I don't need you to pre-fill forms because I might need to enter in something completely different, or I'm trying to just redo something, or all this sort of stuff. I know what I'm going to do on a cleanup when I'm creating something. Okay. I don't need you to remember it, and then I'm gonna have to wipe out all those fields and stuff. Ugh. Right. The other one, automatically applying credits. Same thing down here, automatically applying bill payments. Those things drive me batty. Here's why. If I have an invoice and then we have all the payments put on that invoice and they are all screwed up, they are not matching up to the right invoice at all. If I start unchecking them and trying to clean up the payments and making sure it works right, if I just uncheck them all and save, QuickBooks is going to come back in and fix it for me. It's not a fix. It just automatically applies it to all the oldest ones and to get it working. Okay, that's great, but I want to know really what invoices need to be open still and what hasn't been paid, because we know that can be an issue with some clients of getting the right invoice paid properly, and like, okay, you missed this invoice from 6 months ago. We need to get that one, paid. Um, Now, if you have a situation where that doesn't really matter, then by all means, just keep it on, okay? But if you are going to have to fix that sort of stuff in AR, then man, turn these suckers off. The same thing with bills and bill payments. It's like if they're all applied to the wrong thing and you try to fix it, it comes back in like they're like, oh, look, I cleared everything and everything is taken care of. And as soon as I add a new one or as soon as I save, it just does it for me and makes a mess again. So I like to turn these off. Um, if you're in a situation where it doesn't matter, that's okay. You don't have to turn it off. I'm just telling you that it could be an issue for you. Okay. Now on company settings, just, I guess the only thing here is, do you want to turn off these warn if duplicate check number is used or duplicate bill number is used? If you are doing a lot of work like that, I could give you probably examples of why you want it turned on and why you don't want it turned on. It is just a matter of your certain engagement, okay? If you don't care about check numbers and you're just trying to get as much entered, then yeah, then don't worry about the warnings because that's going to slow you down. If you're putting in stuff and you want to make sure you're not entering something over again, then keep the warnings, okay? Because that will be like a check on you to make sure that you got it right. Okay. Then the other thing here is the sign me out. If you feel like you're getting like kicked out of QBO to early or something, you can always update this. I don't know. It gives you a couple hours, but it's like if you're not active in there. I put this in as an option for you to look at if you want to. Okay. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 hours. Okay. So those are the main things. Now, I guess I don't have, looking back at here, do you have project tracking on? Here, once you turn it on, you can't turn it off. Then, oh, and I've never really talked to currency. Again, if you turn on multi-currency, you cannot turn that off afterwards. So be prepared on those things. Now, let's look at lists. So if I come into the gear icon and I go to all list, this gives me almost everything. So it's kind of like delete in QBO where it doesn't actually delete it. When you say all list, it gives you 90% of the list. These within QBO, anything that is a list is a drop down. Okay, so if I come into an invoice right here, I have a drop down for customers. That is a list, right? I have drop down for terms, drop down for locations, drop down for classes, rates. Well, that's different. Products right here. I think that, yeah, this is all because of that what price rules thing. That's why that's turned on. So all of those other things are drop downs, right? Those are lists, and you can see them in here. What I'll say is that you don't have customers or vendors or employees listed on here. You can just come over to vendors, see your list, right? Think you can, yeah, just create your vendors there. Then also under reporting, there is a vendor report. You can do a vendor contact list, okay? If you want to get more information on your list. So that's an understanding of anytime there's a drop down, there's a list involved behind it. And what happens is it comes back to what is information. It's linking the information from, like, say, this vendor to that transaction. Okay. And if you come in here, it might autofill some information. If you had the cost or the billing rate, that might help on invoicing, those sorts of things. Like vendors is not a great one. Customers better. And come in here, edit. So it knows the preferred payment method, it knows the terms on that customer. All of these sorts of things kind of help when you are creating a transaction that's related to that customer, help like autofill some things. Okay. Now, deleting and merging. So when we are in any list, give me this. Okay. Within any of these lists, basically, we're going to have similar views of, we have this gear icon on this table, has the option to include more things in this table to look at, also has the option to include inactive things, which are things that we have deleted in the past. So if I want to come into anything in here, if I go to a customer and come in and edit and make inactive, that's basically deleting it. Okay, if I come over to chart of accounts, I have that same table view, right? And I have my columns. I can include the inactive ones, right? And close. And I can even come in here. Okay, that was the drop down. Do you see my face? Make inactive right there. Okay. Um, now with QBO Advanced, with that limitation of you can only have, I think, 40 classes and locations combined, and then like 250 chart of accounts. When you make things inactive, it gets it below your range of things. So find out how to manage your usage for Advanced. What is the customer label? That's a question from Sally. Let's see if we see it in here. I'm wondering if you're looking at customer type. This is a new thing in here. You can create customer types on customer types. And you can, let's see what the edit is. All it is a name that you can apply to customers. I have not done a lot of playing around with this. I know I have one client where it's a financial advisor, and she like labels like good clients, medium clients, that sort of thing. So I want to utilize those. I was running into issues on reporting. But I haven't gone back and played around with it. I think it's better where I can group things and that stuff. Again, because it has that drop down, it's easier to filter, it's easier to group. It's just also a matter of, this is a newer thing. Did Intuit like build out all that functionality yet? Just something I have to test still to know for sure on things. If I wanted to merge things, let me find a good example of something to merge. Let's go to all lists. Let's do oh, I only have one location. Classes? Okay. So if I want to merge anything, all I have to do is take the item that I don't really want anymore, and say I want it all to be DEF right here. I go to GHI. I want to turn GHI into DEF, right? Merge the two. So I come in here, edit, and do DEF, right? Save. The name is already being used. Do you want to merge it? Yes. That gets rid of it. Funny though, if I include an active, like GHI is in there again. But what it's done is moved all the transactions that had GHI now have DEF on them. And that's how you're able to merge it. So there's no actual merge button in QBO, but if you make the name exactly the same, it will give you that, it will ask you if you want to merge the two. In chart of accounts, you need to make sure that it's same type of account. So you can't merge a liability into an asset account. You have to change that liability to an asset first, and then you would be able to merge the two. Okay. Then also, let's go. If I come in and I want to merge this customer, I want to change this display name. Oh, wait, display name as that one. That's the one you want to make the same for them to merge together. Okay. That's the reference one that we were looking at. Okay, and then I have finding inactive list items. I showed you guys that. Now, let me see what some questions we have in here. Going back to the customer label question again, and we're saying it was in customer settings. Oh, I know what you're talking about now. So here's the thing. If I'm in here and it says customers right here, all this does is coming into accountant settings, advanced, and is it down here? Customer label. Okay, I can change this to something else. So I can say it's clients, donors, guests, members, whatever. So if I change it to clients, right? All the terminology within the database of QuickBooks, done. Ta-da! It now says clients. Okay, so all the reports are going to say sales by client instead of sales by customer. That's all it does. Cool. Okay, there again, I'm showing you on this screenshot when you are merging, you want to change that display name. Okay. And there's the screenshot to show inactive items. Now let's talk about deleting versus voiding. I will tell you that, let's look at our audit log. So when we're doing a cleanup, we're changing transactions, we're making adjustments, we're looking at stuff, and there's, sometimes we're like, this transaction shouldn't be in here, this one shouldn't be in here, doing all that. So you instinctively you would think, hey, let's delete those, right? So, but I want to tell you guys don't. And let's look at why. Okay. Oh. Seriously, when you get rid of that little filter of saying this month, it doesn't actually go away. This year, apply. Okay. So when I looking at this and says deleted expense, right? And I view it, I see this history of the transaction itself. But I can't go to the transaction. So if I mistakenly delete a transaction, I have to go in and create a whole new thing, right? I can use the audit log to recreate it, but I have to create a whole new transaction. And that takes time. And I'm here to make sure you don't waste time on things. So let's see if I void. When I void something, if it gives me that link to the transaction, it gives me all the history, right? It gives me that link to that transaction. Now, if I click on it, I bet you, oh, it still is voided. Okay. What you'll notice in here is this is my test company that I use for all of my training, especially this cleanup one. And I've offered this class, I don't know, 6, 8 times, something. So I have voided, deleted, done everything to screw up this file so many times that I'm not even sure where we are on things. And before next class, I get to screw it up again just to make sure that you get a very messed up file for us to do a cleanup for. Okay. But that's why I was like, is it still voided? I don't know. What did I actually do to it? But hey, it's still voided, right? And again, I can go back into this audit history. I can see what I did within the audit history. Anything that is highlighted shows you what was changed in that iteration of it. So I can come back down here, see things were not cleared, but I can see it was $59 before. Okay, so I can come back in and just change it to $59, save and close. Now, there's things here. I've kept the audit log. I just have a new edit to that transaction. Okay, so I can see all the changes that I've made there. If I need to get rid of it again, I can just void it again. And, it's still one whole thing. It makes it very flexible for me to deal with things and especially in this cleanup of stuff. Like, I'd rather, in most cases, I hate $0 transactions, except when I'm doing a cleanup and I'm dealing with historical transactions and I just want to make it right, you know? And I'd much rather keep that 0 there than have to spend a couple of minutes to figure out what was the transaction I deleted by mistake? How do I get it back? What do I need to, what information I need to put in there? It's a total pain in the butt, right? I don't like doing those things. So that's where Yeah, void, 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 void. Now, there are some transactions you cannot void in QBO. So if I go to bank deposit and I go to a recent one, I cannot go more and void, okay? In those instances, all I do is a manual void. I put it to 0. Guess what? The transaction's now 0. Save and close. I voided it. It doesn't say it's voided, but I voided it, okay? So if I make a mistake, I can go back, change it, fix it, that sort of thing. Because let me tell you, we're not perfect when we clean up transactions, and it's always possible that we also make a mistake. That's what we do. So coming back here, showing you the voided transaction history. Oh, and then showing you how I zero out transactions. This is another example here. If I have a transaction that is, see here, it's billable to a customer, I don't know if that has actually been put on an invoice before. And it's linked to it, and you have all that other stuff in between. I don't want to mess with that, okay? So what I actually do is put in an additional line in this transaction for a negative amount to make the transaction 0. I can still apply it to the client. So if I ran a report for the client, it would end up being a 0, but I didn't mess with anything if it was linked to another transaction. And that's the thing that always scares me is in the past, they might have fixed some of that stuff by now, but in the past I have done that and, removed things and whatever, and it screwed up my client's invoicing and it screwed up the history. And it was really, really, really hard to fix because when you make adjustments to this, that billable expense transaction is gone. That little screen that we saw, it's gone. And it's you can't just create a billable expense transaction. It's just it's a huge headache. So I add a line and make it 0 so I don't have to deal with it. Okay. Importing data into QBO. So we have basic features. Okay, wait, where am I going? Gear icon, import data, right? I can, one, import the bank data so that I either use a file from the bank or connect the bank stuff. I'll show you that in a second. I'm trying to get past that so I can tell you these other ones right here. Okay, then we can also import clients, vendors, chart of accounts, and products and services. Okay, we can't import transactions just through QBO. But here, if we want to import clients, what QBO does is it gives us a sample file that I would download. It tells me how is this sucker supposed to look, okay? Put in all the information, everything. I would save a new file, and then I could upload it and import it in, okay? So we're able to do that on these if you need to get that information into QBO. Now, on banking, we are able, anyone else annoyed with them like flipping all of this stuff around? Like before those little bars were on the other side. Anyway, if I come here, right, I can add an account. So add a whole new connection to get the bank feed, make that live. If I need to get in historical stuff, I can upload a CSV. Mostly you want to look for a .qbo file. If you're in the bank account and have access to it, you search around for something like QuickBooks download, Quicken download. I've done that before. It works. And something like that. It usually gives you a much longer period of transactions that you can pull in. And so you can get that file and then put it in here, and it acts once you upload it in here, it just looks like this. It's just transactions that you need to go through. Let's see. And what you will notice, I'm like, I think these, somehow you'll notice that the screens are like updated 7/30/18. And if I come in and yeah, I'm not, oh, that one might be connected. I don't know. You have the card on here, but it's not an actual live connection when you just upload it. Okay. Um, so, but that's how you get all those. You can get a whole bunch of transactions in there. Now, if those things aren't working or you need more, okay, there's other apps out there that help you import transactions. I've used Transaction Pro Importer in the past a ton to get stuff in there. Sasant, I think, works pretty much the same as Transaction Pro Importer, just whichever one you prefer. Sasant might be cheaper. I've just been using Transaction Pro forever, and I'm just kind of stuck. Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, I'm good. Okay, a dollar difference or a couple dollar difference is not going to hurt me versus making my brain work a little bit more to figure out a new app. Okay, HubDoc could bring in some transactions and kind of help you with that. I would say auto entry and receipt bank are very similar. I know I have a free demo on the website for auto entry. That sucker is kind of cool. Okay, where you can bring in, if you can't get that .qbo file or whatever, if you have the PDF of the statements, it will help you convert it into its own little bank feed and put the transactions into QBO. So again, saves you a ton of time. That's really the reviews I see on auto entry, like people talking about it, it basically cut down on the amount of time to enter transactions. Like most people use it for cleanups, but I think you can still then continue to use it afterwards. Um, Auto entry and receipt bank, they also charge differently. So you want to look at that and see how they bill you and stuff. Auto entry, I think is, I just know it more because David Leary is one of my friends and he works there. So I just know it better. I really haven't dived that deep into either of those apps way too much other than seeing the demos and interviewing people. But auto entry, I know they charge like kind of like credits. So it's not per subscription, like per client or anything. You just get like all these credits and you utilize those between whatever client you want to utilize them for. And some things you do take a couple more credits than others. I don't know. Let's look at their websites and figure out how they charge. Okay, so importing data. Importing data. Now, link transactions. I know you're seeing a whole bunch of these things and you see that it's at the top of the hour. The funny thing about link transactions is that I've pretty much covered most of it so far. So we have talked about those billable expenses. Time entry is stuff, again, it could be linked to an invoice. Pretty much what I do here with those kind of things is I'm trying to scare you away from just deleting stuff. Okay. So here on the bank feed, what you see on a transaction, let's see, if I come in here, you'll see up here that I have a banking match, okay? And I have that transaction. That's the information that came in from the bank. Sometimes you might see that they don't match. It's because someone didn't match them up right, okay? If I come in here and unmatch it, it gets rid of that link. And so that was 1286. It puts it back in here for review right here. Okay, for 1286. So that's how the bank feed and stuff works. We're going to be doing a lot more of that when we start cleaning up transactions. Okay. Invoice payments, again, linking into the invoice of how those apply. Again, I hate that feature of the auto apply, so I always turn it off. because it could create some craziness. Like this one is like there's random dollars going to different invoices, right? Um, bills, same thing. Random things can be applied to it, or you get to create that linked transaction, you know? It's like I want full control of this. Um, then billable expenses, what I've talked about, connecting those transactions. How is the revenue recorded out of all of that? And I'm like, what is this screenshot of? Oh, when you delete something off the invoice, that's a good one. That one. I have this link, right? So I brought over this transaction. I can remove this link, or I can delete that and still keep the link. So if I want to say keep it, and then I put in a whole new thing, I still have that link transaction on that invoice. Okay, it just, my invoice is now 0. So if I save it, it's like gonna be like, you don't have anything on here. Why are you doing this? Here, save and close. So it kept that link, right, of that billable expense, but it's not on the invoice anymore. And really, that comes down to when people are invoicing and they use billable charges, they're coming in and be like, okay, I run unbilled charges. What haven't I invoiced yet? And I want to get rid of everything that I haven't invoiced. So if you keep that link, it doesn't push it back over into this area. So another thing to worry about. You don't want your clients invoicing the same thing a couple times, because then they're just going to look stupid to their customers and they're going to get pissed at you. So don't do that. Okay. That is the end of today's session. We have off topic. David Leary is awesome, and Ashley loves the Cloud Accounting podcast, which, yes, David Leary and Blake Oliver are both awesome and do that podcast. You should definitely check it out if you haven't before. So that is it for today's session. Please make sure you're asking questions in the Facebook group if you have any. And I will save this recording afterwards. It does take a little bit of time to convert it and do all that sort of stuff, but I will get you guys the link within the group so that you can watch it again at any point in time that you want to. Cool? Okay, guys, you guys have an amazing weekend, and I will see you on Wednesday. Okay, bye, guys.